Hello, welcome back to the channel, everyone that's tuned in. American Ultra Stock. Here we are today, bringing to you guys a little bit of a late version, but it is the segment that we always bring to you guys on a weekly basis. Braden and I analyzing the players who did well and impressed and did enough to get a stock up or stock down. The Americas, not necessarily just abroad in the MLS. But straight to the point, before we go, I want to say thank you to everybody that's been subscribing to the channel. We've seen a lot of new subs, so if you haven't yet, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends if you think we're worthy of it. We'll definitely try to be. So straight to the point, Braden, who's the first player that caught your attention, your eye over the weekend, and got to stock up?
Yeah, just quickly, I want to apologize for the late upload. It's completely on me. But we should be back to regular programming now. And my first player who gets to stock up is a bit of a heartwarming one. It's Sebastian Soto, who's been out of the picture for so long. He had a long-term injury last season. Honestly, I thought he might be dead or something because he wasn't doing anything. But he just recovered from a very long-term injury that had him out basically all of last season, and he's back. Austria Klagenfurt, his team, are in the first tier in Austria. They're playing friendlies because Austria gets a very, very long winter break in their league, which is a bit weird. But they've played 2 friendlies. He's been back for both of them, and he has 3 goals in 2 games, including a brace in his first game back from an injury. And considering he was out for almost a year, I think that's really impressive, regardless of maybe a bit weaker of opposition level. I think it's still pretty impressive for him to be immediately back on the score sheet, and hopefully he can continue this play into the league form, because honestly we've seen players in Austria get into the national team before. I don't think he's anywhere close to that, let's be real. There's a lot of good strikers in our depth right now, but it's just nice to see because he's been out of the picture for a while and a lot of people wrote him off. And honestly, I don't know if he'll ever be back with the USMNT, but I do think he could have a pretty respectable career in Europe. He's still only 22, so don't give up on him just yet.
Yeah, it's always nice to see players trying to revive their careers. That's really nice. We've seen Maloney last year had a great year in Austria and got a move to Basel, although they're doing terribly. It is a big team in Europe. It's a step up, so hopefully Soto can get his feet back on form, and that's really encouraging to see. Kind of in the same vibe, I'm picking a player that I never imagined that I would pick for a stock up. The first one is Gianluca Buzio, or he's kindly known to some Venezia fans, Bumzio, but he's been doing really well. We'll scratch that. So I have to pick him. A crazy, crazy bonkers game against Sampdoria, who not only because they're coached by Pirlo, but they are favorites to go back up immediately, and the season hasn't been that good for them. But it was a game that was really comfortable for Venezia. However, it turned it on its head. It was a crazy game, 3-3. Buzio, that was really the goal that changed the game. Although you look at the scoreline, you see 5-3. That goal by Buzio was the sole reason, in my opinion, which why Venezia won the game. Definitely broke the tide because Sampdoria was looking like they were going to score a fourth. But if you look at the goal, it's a very un-Buzio-like goal because he uncharacteristically had a lot of urgency, ran, sprinted into the box, won the header. That was a really nice goal by him. And not only the goal, I'll always also say that his work rate has been really impressing me. And this was the reward, really. The fact that he scored such a meaningful goal against a big club. We'll say they're one of the biggest ones in Serie B this season. And with a good performance, capping that great performance with a goal, it's really important. And I will pick a stock up not only based on that, but because him and Tessman are being so good and playing together in a campaign that I think should see Venezia go to the Serie A. His stock goes up in the national team level as well, because I think that not for the main one, but for the Olympics, if he carries on this form, he should definitely get a call up then. And it's always nice to see. I think that Buzio is finding his feet. He has been good for the past 6-7 games, really, playing at a good level. And the work rate is something that I also love to see because it shows that his mentality has been switching. So I have to pick Buzio against all odds at the start of the season. But now on the sour note, who's the first one that gets a stock down?
Yeah, just a quick fact check. Soto is 23, not 22. And just a quick PSA as well to all of our fans. If you can, watch Venezia play. It's pretty attainable, honestly, because they do play a lot on, I think it's a CBS Sports Network, one of their soccer channels, which is pretty accessible, honestly, in the US. And Venezia are on that channel almost every time they play. So if you can, just watch them play. Tessman and Busia, they've been very impressive this season, likely going up to Serie A. And I feel like a lot of our fans don't really watch because it is in Serie B, but watch, you'll be impressed. But moving on to my stock down, and this is going to include a little bit of our plug. Go follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, because we were, I think, the second USMNT page to actually tweet out this news. Diego Cochin is being recruited by the Spanish Federation, so he's going to get my first stock down, because anytime where a dual national is being courted by a nation as big as Spain, it has to be a stock down for his USMNT hopes. I'm still pretty optimistic that we will end up getting him. His other two nationalities, Venezuela and Peru, look they're not really realistic options. He's too good for both those national teams, let's be honest. And he still does seem pretty committed to the U.S., but Spain have a lot of pull, and they really want him. They're making a push for him. They want to invite him into their youth camps. So you really never know what could happen. And also the fact that Barcelona control all of his decisions basically at youth level. If the U.S. calls him up to a youth tournament, like for example the Olympics, if we were to call him up, they could just say no, or a U20 championship, they could say no. We already saw Paxton Aronson at Frankfurt got rejected to go to the U20 World Cup. We could see a similar situation with Cochin, and it could be tactical, honestly, by Barcelona to let him go play for Spain, but not for the US, which is a little bit concerning. But I am still pretty optimistic that he'll pick us, but his stock does have to go down when a prestigious national team like Spain wants him.
Absolutely. I think, honestly, at this point, just give him a cap. Give him a cap tie him. The goalkeeping position is one that we can't afford to lose another dual national. We've seen Zion Suzuki, although he was never really that close to the U.S. like Cochin is, but just cap tie him. We might be losing, put it in balance, we might be losing a great player for the future. So, but yeah, I agree. It is concerning. But it is as concerning as the next player that I'm going to pick, Balogun. I have to pick him. 1 goal in 11 games. Granted, that was against PSG, but 11 games, only 1 goal. If you had told me in the beginning of the season that Balogun, halfway through the season, would have only 1 goal more than Emmanuel Sabi, I'll be a little bit shocked. But it is what it is. That's what happens. And his coach publicly criticized him. Ute, he said that Balogun needs to adapt, needs to be more versatile, because at the moment he's only a player that can run on the shoulder of the last defender, really. So a counter-attacking style is what he thrives on. But Monaco, they're a big club, so they are trying to fight upwards in the table. So gradually they're going to play teams that are going to be sitting back. And Balogun, we've seen the national team as well. He doesn't really work too well when there isn't much space for him to capitalize on, and his team holds more of the possession. So that's one of the reasons why I think he thrived last year playing for Reims, because he was, well, they're a smaller club. He was their only forward, always running in behind, fast counterattack, fast pacing. He needs to be more versatile. I agree with his coach, and it's really concerning overall. I think that it's not a great season for Balogun. Maybe it is a good moment for him to not really reality check, because I don't think that he really needs one. It doesn't seem like that type of guy. But for our fan base to have a reality check and calm down, this is not the new Henry, like some people said. So his stock has to go down, unfortunately. Now, that compared to Pepe's great season, so that all adds up to a stock down for Balogun for me so far. Now, on a better note, who's your next player that got a stock up, Brayden?
You actually mentioned him when talking about Balogun. My next stock up was going to be Emmanuel Sabi, and he's just burst onto the scene this year. He did get a call-up to camp cupcake, or it was either that or the El Cachico, as TAC has called it, against Mexico. There's the cash grab friendly. It was one of those two camps. I don't remember which one, but he got a call-up last year with the B or C team roster. Didn't really do much with the call-up. He was playing in Denmark then, but he's in Ligue 1 and he's performing. The last couple of performances with Le Havre have been really promising. He scored that amazing brace, which I still think is one of the best American performances abroad this season, just if you take the entire pool combined, which is obviously very impressive for Asabi. And he scored a very nice hustle goal over the weekend against Lyon, who obviously are a huge club, but struggling and fighting for relegation now. I think if you had told people at the start of the season that Le Havre would be comfortably beating Lyon and pushing for the front half of the table while Lyon are almost getting relegated, I think people would say, you have it mixed up, you've got it the other way around. So it's just nice to see that Sabi's actually fitting into probably a top 5 league in the world, considering the small club that he came from in Denmark. I honestly didn't think he'd be fitting into Ligue 1 at all, so it's been nice to see. And hopefully he can continue his form. And honestly, if he does keep it up, I think he could warrant a call-up maybe for the March Nations League roster in the semifinals and final, just because our wing depth right now is a little lackluster.
Yeah, definitely. They're him and Haji Wright. They're names that could be thrown up there and wouldn't be too debatable that they deserve at least a chance. Throw him around. We don't really have that much depth, so I agree. And also, I was watching the game, which is really funny because I don't typically watch Le Havre, but I was on the stream and he almost scored a banger 5 minutes before he scored that hustle goal. Almost scored a really nice goal, so it would have made headlines again. But yeah, props to Sabi. Really, honestly, props to him. I never imagined that Le Havre would be this high up the table. We'll not talk about my prediction, but anyways, now moving on to my next player, I have to say just Wes McKennie. I have to highlight his season again. What a player, really. And the way that he revived his career with the interviews, that interview alone gives me a bit of a stock up already for him, because it shows that he really had a reality check. And in the long term, I think that Leeds move, although it was bad on the pitch, did a lot more good outside of the pitch. It really made him realize that this was the moment, the pinnacle of his career, if he didn't really nail down and try to get to work again, because he had a contract with a big club. They didn't want him again, but he worked hard in the off season, came back, giving interviews in Italian as well for the first time, which I think it's important. It shows the commitment and the willingness to adapt, really, and show that he's a different player, a different person. What a season, really. And those 2 assists were amazing the Coppa Italia. Frosinone, I don't know how they got there, really. I wish that Venezia could have gotten that far, but regardless, what a nice game. Both of them really silky on the ball, vision. This is something that Wes has that I don't think any other of our midfielders really possess, that quality to constantly be pumping out long balls like that. I think that he's definitely the most consistent, so I have to pick him again. What a season by Wes. And he, again, I'll never get tired of saying he beat the Fatso McKennie allegations. He's skinny now. Now, who's your next player, Braden?
Anytime you're getting compared to Andrea Pirlo, it can't be a bad thing, right? So on a more bitter note, my next stock down is going to be Cade Cowell, and this is a player who I haven't rated in a while, honestly. So in the summer, I put him in the top 5 of our U20 prospects. Huge mistake by me, but since then I've been on the Cowell is not that good of a player train, and it seems I'm right. He's off to Liga MX instead of going to Europe, so clearly he can't make good decisions for his career. I will say the Chivas fans have been actually very welcoming to him, which is surprising considering he is a full USMNT international, and their policy is that they only sign Mexicans. Obviously, I know he's a dual national of Mexico. He has Mexican heritage, and I guess he qualifies through that. But it is kind of funny to see a USA international playing for Chivas who only signed Mexican players. But the fans have been very welcoming to him. They seem very excited. And I do think it'll be good for him in the aspect that Mexican fans are a lot more unforgiving than MLS fans. There's more of a consequence if you perform badly, especially for a US international playing in a traditional Mexican team. But I think for his career, it's a bad move. He should have just gone to Europe. Europe was the only hope for him to improve his technical quality. We see the athleticism is there, but the technical quality is just a very, very traditional American trait, honestly. He's just basically Jordan Morris 2.0, and he could succeed in Liga MX, but Mexico has a very, very limited history of selling to Europe. The clubs always demand too much money or are unwilling to sell. He should have stayed in MLS if he wanted to eventually end his career in Europe, or at least try for a couple seasons or two. Like some players, like even Nico Giacchini, the St. Louis City striker, is going to Europe, and Cade Cowell can't. It's not a good sign for his career. A lot of players this window, honestly, have had career-ending moves from a national team perspective. So his stock has to go down. I don't think he should be back with the national team ever again, honestly. I'll say it now. I know he's young, but I don't think he has the quality. I don't think he ever has had the quality. He's a great youth player because of the physicality that he has, but it doesn't translate to the senior level.
Yeah, and you touched the point of some of the moves that happened. We'll have that video later on in the month. We'll just wait out to see how the transfer window. We see craziness all the time. Gio Reyna's on the lookout for a team, but stay tuned. We're going to bring that video in the future. My opinion on Cal is that I don't know why, first of all, Chivas is hyping this up so much. It's insane, really. Their social media team, I don't know if they just watched that Fiji goal and the U20 World Cup over and over and thought that we signed the new Messi or something, but props to him for trying to. It is a more challenging step, but in my opinion, it is ultimately, like you said, it closes the door. Definitely makes the gap for him to really make the jump up to the A squad a lot smaller, because I don't think it's a good move, really. He's just going to be stuck around in Liga MX. They don't really sell youngsters to Europe, especially with this amount of hype and this investment, really. I don't think that. I think he's just doomed to stay there, really. We'll see what happens with Cade, but ultimately he should have been a football player, in my opinion. People say that he was a great football player. He has the quality for that. He just got to catch the ball and run. So anyways, my player with a stock down, he needs to move, in my opinion. Aronson. I'm going to say I watched Union Berlin. I thought he wasn't that bad, really. People always say that he gets thrown off the ball. I don't think that's really a concern. I think that people exaggerate that. I counted. He only fell once, and that's like every other player got fouled. But he was fouling a lot, which I was actually surprised. He was fouling a lot, making a lot of, in my opinion, silly fouls. I don't know if it's the eagerness to show I don't know, a product, show the manager that he wants to be there. But ultimately, such a good technical player, and I've said this over and over again, his physicality in terms of work rate really does diminish how good of a player he is on the ball, and people overlook that. But the end product, he had one play in particular where he showed his techers, really took 2 players on, but the last pass to open up to the flank and then eventually lead to a cross was bad. And I think that the end product, anytime that it's something related to getting to the last third of the pitch, Aronson really falters, and I think that he needs to move. But it's kind of sad to say that the guy just moved, but he has to get a stock down, especially with the fact that Haji, and this is mostly on Haji and Sabi emerging, and our fans loving to hype up players out of nowhere. I think that, and granted, they have deserved to get their names around a possible call-up, but with Aronson showing this type of form, I think it's more and more realistic that we might see Haji or Sabi included in the wings instead of him. So it has to be a stock down for him. I'm sorry, Braden, I know you're his biggest fan, but who's your next player?
One thing I will say to defend him is that if he had scored that goal that Sabi scored over the weekend, he would have been absolutely flamed by it on Twitter. So he's a hustle merchant, work rate merchant. But that's all I'm going to say for now. Congrats to Sabi on the goal. And my last player whose stock went up is going to be Serginho Dest. He's been having an amazing season. His defensive abilities have been a little lackluster against the top opposition, but all in all, he's been incredible. One of the best fullbacks in the Netherlands, as PSV basically have the best player at every position in the Netherlands, to be honest. They haven't lost a single game in the league or in the cup this entire season. The only loss I think they had was to Arsenal in the Champions League that I can remember. So incredible season for them, incredible season for Dest. He picked up an assist as well last weekend, and it just continues to show. The final product is finally there. He's showing his techers every weekend, releasing a new highlight reel on his Instagram story. It seems like he megs people every game, honestly. He's always taking people on. He's one of the best attacking fullbacks I've seen in a while. Honestly, I'm just waiting for him to be tried at winger, considering how bad our backup wingers are, honestly, and how bad Way has been playing as well. But yeah, Dest, I mean, his stock's been going up all season, but we haven't mentioned him in a while, and I thought he deserved some recognition because he really has been having a turnaround season, especially considering where he has been the past couple of years at Barcelona, AC Milan. It's really nice to see him finally taking his career decision seriously, picking a perfect club for himself, and hopefully he can stay there for longer. He said in an interview recently that he does want to stay at PSV. Hopefully they can get that deal done with Barcelona.
Yeah, he seems happy, and ultimately this season has been what he was expecting. I think he revived his career, got it back on track, seems a lot happier, and he also taught Tillman how to make those highlight reels, because now he's dropping a few here and there, so props for that as well. The last player that I'm going to pick for a stock up, he hasn't really played ever since he got a clean sheet against Royal Antwerp, Sam Vine's old club to Sam Vines, by the way. But Mark McKenzie, I have to pick him because we see during this transfer window that Miles Robinson's going to stay. He clearly doesn't really back himself to succeed and get an eventually better contract in Europe, and he stayed in MLS. That ultimately, to me, shuts the door on his aspirations to be there in 26. We'll see how he performs, but I just wanted to throw a little bit of love to McKenzie. He's been doing really well. He's becoming a fan favorite really over there. And he got the last game was a clean sheet against a good club that wasn't the Champions League. And I feel like he's always doing well. People will undermine how well he's doing in the Belgian Pro League. But hey, he is where he should be, really. He's in Europe trying himself, testing his feet, and I think that eventually he'll get a better move. And with the way that our center back depth has been going, I think that there's a clear opening there. There's a chance for him to step up and be the A-teamer there. So I just wanted to say that. And I would really like to see a guy like him be one of the overage players for the Olympic roster. I think that would be really nice. It's something, he's a fringe player, experienced. We need a center back at that age group. We are kind of short, so I'm just going to throw him out there. I think he's a good option for that cycle. Now, who's your last player to be on the stock down list, Braden?
Yeah, well, we're talking about center backs. You mentioned Miles Robinson. I just want to give a quick shout out to Donovan Pines, who somehow is more ambitious with his career than Miles Robinson is, making the move to Europe. So shout out to him for actually trying something new and trying to push his career forward. Miles, you could learn a thing or two from him. I'm not saying we should call out Pines, by the way. He's not that good. But my next stock down is actually also going to be a center back. It's going to be John Brooks. Now, a lot of USMNT fans have been hyping his season, and I'm not really sure why. He's been starting for the majority of games for Hoffenheim, which is cool, but if you're not putting up good performances, the start doesn't really mean much, to be honest. And they just sold one of their starting center backs, Kevin Vogt, to Brendan Aronson's club, Union Berlin, who he already looks like a great signing for them to replace Leo Bonucci. And you can tell that Vocht's been missing for Hoffenheim. They played Bayern Munich a day or two after he got sold, and despite that, the fact that they haven't signed a replacement, they still didn't play John Brooks. He was on the bench, despite the fact they sold one of their starting center backs against the best team in the league, we'll say. I know Leverkusen have been flying, but let's be realistic. Bayern is still the best club in the world on their top form, and maybe it's not in the world, but at least in the Bundesliga. And yeah, it's just concerning the lack of confidence that the Hoffenheim manager, Pellegrino Matarazzo, fellow American, now has in John Brooks is concerning. And I think the USMNT fans we all need to just let it go. Realistically, even if he was performing at a top level, Greg's not going to call him up anyway. So there's no point trying to hype his performances for starting and not really doing too well. He hasn't kept too many clean sheets, and it looks like he's permanently going to be out of the starting lineup now, and rightly so.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I'll be honest. I watched him 4 full matches this year, and he cost them in every single one of them. Even the one that he scored, I thought that he's always costing them. So I don't see a reason why he'd be there. His positioning has been awful, which for me is the most concerning part. The speed's still there, even though he is approaching the mid-30s, but the positioning for a player of that age to be so naive, I think there's obviously the managers watch him train, and even being a fellow American, to leave him on the bench, it's warranted. I don't get why people hype up John Brooks. The only thing that makes me think that is that they check app ratings, and that's it. They don't really watch the games or the highlights. That's the sole reason why they're rating his season. But anyways, the last player that I'm going to go for is Weah. I have to pick Weah. He gets a stock down for me because he's so passive on the ball. So passive on the ball. And he gets the ball quite a lot, but I feel like he's really passive, and he has really lost the dynamic of just running straight and let me rephrase it, the dynamic of running diagonally and cutting inside, because he's just on that flank. I don't know if it's Allegri said in an interview that he seems really tense and he needs to loosen up and not worry too much about not trying to progress the game, which is kind of funny coming from Allegri, because he's one of the most pragmatic coaches ever. So I don't know if that's a conflict there. But Weah does, whatever the reason may be, Weah does look like he's holding back. Even though that he scored that banger a few weeks ago, I thought that maybe would give him a little bit of extra confidence. But even then, the opposition wasn't that high. But regardless, it hasn't really changed much. Anytime that he comes on, and again, the fact that he's riding the bench, even if McKennie isn't playing, I don't know. I just think that overall for Weah, it was a bit of a mix. This is a weird transfer to analyze, really, but I think it has done more harm than good. He's a player without a position at a club that he's not a starter. He's not really the immediate backup. Sometimes he starts, sometimes he's not. Just very unstable, and I think that it's really sad, because I thought Weah could have a great season. So I'm picking him. But now for our players to watch this upcoming week, who are you keeping an eye on and listing out on your stock watch, Braden?
Yeah, so for my sleeper pick, I'm going to go for 2 of them, one for club level and one for the Camp Cupcake that is going to be happening against Slovenia. I'll start with that. Esmir Baraktarovic. We played a closed doors friendly against River Plate, the Argentine Giants, and we actually drew 2-2, which honestly, considering we have a squad full of MLS players, I think was a very promising result. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're the USMNT, you should be beating a club team. But realistically, you have to look at the rosters, and I think a draw is honestly a pretty solid result. Baraktarovic did score one of those goals. I think he's the youngest player in the roster, and he's been the youngest player in the Olympic roster as well, and he doesn't look out of place at all, which is very surprising to me, considering he's one of the only players at that level who's not playing professionally yet. He's playing in MLS Next Pro, not MLS. I think this season he's going to have a huge breakout year. Stay tuned for a video about MLS breakouts, by the way, as well, coming out in a couple of weeks. but I think he's going to have a really good game against Slovenia. I think he's going to impress. He should start. He warranted it with the goal against River Plate. And yeah, I think it'll be a great performance for him and could attract some attention from Europe. Who knows? But my other sleeper pick for club level is going to be a player who I guarantee that 95% of US fans don't know. It's a striker from Germany in the 3rd division, Mansour Urotagba. He's a tri-national with Germany, and I believe Togo is where he was born. And he's finally breaking into the 1860 München first team. He scored 2 goals in 2 friendlies recently for their first team, finally getting minutes. And I think he can really break into the squad coming as their league is going to be starting again, I think this weekend. So I'm looking forward to him potentially getting some cameos off the bench. He hasn't really played for their first team. He's been with the youth teams. But considering his impressive performances in friendlies and limited minutes, kind of like Ricardo Pepi's been doing, I expect him to get a lot more run with the first team. And who knows, maybe he can get a transfer within a year or two to a higher level club. We see some of our players, a lot of our players play in Germany, whether it's the 1st division, 2nd or 3rd. And I think it's a really good pathway for our players, honestly. And he's only 19, so I think we shouldn't write him off just yet, even though he is in the 3rd division. Then finally, for my main player to watch, my mainstream guy is going to be Jordan Pefok, because he is back from injury. And I think he scored as well, actually, in his return from injury. A lot of our strikers have been doing that lately, which is nice to see. And yeah, I mean, he's in contention for a spot. Him and Josh Sargent and Daryl DK actually all just came back from injury. And I think he's really fighting with them for a potential 3rd striker spot. Maybe being an overage player at the Olympics, who knows? Maybe potentially making the Copa America roster. Because we saw 3 strikers on the World Cup roster, so who knows what Greg will do, honestly. We have enough striker depth to bring 3, I think. So I think we should watch out Pefok. He's going to be fully back from injury, probably starting in Gladbach's game this weekend.
Yeah, and honestly, I just want to say congrats to Pefok. Yeah, it's like the guy could read the future. What a move, honestly, by him. What a move. Dodged a huge spell at staying in Berlin. But I'm going to go with Griffin Yao. I think that it's the biggest game for them so far. They're going to play Club Brugge. It's a nice game for a lot of people to watch. It's not really we can't give the excuse that it's against some nobodies. It's a nice game, and he has been an integral reason on why they have been changing their season around. They got their first win. He's been scoring for them. I think he's a really exciting player. He's been starting a couple of games here and there, so I think it would be nice to see him play against one of the biggest clubs in Belgium. So it would be nice to watch that. Hopefully they do get the win, and it would be a surprise win. I don't know. I'm gonna watch them. Definitely gonna pull for them. I have a thing for the underdog, so I'm gonna list him out there. I think that he's a player that is really emerging for that Olympic roster, perhaps. And the wing depth, we know how it is. He is a striker, but does go to the flanks quite a lot. So I think it would be a good player to watch for this week. And my mainstream pick, I'm gonna go for Josh Sargent. He's come back from injury. He is so consistent for Norwich. Now he's going to play against Dike's team, West Brom. I would pick Dike because this might be a hot take. I have a little bit more faith in Dike than Sargent, which might sound insane, but I really think that if he wasn't made out of glass, he'd be a really promising player. But regardless, I think that Sargent, I don't think that Dike is going to play. He's been benched for the past game, probably easing him into action. But Sargent, watch out. Shrey, one of the channel members a while back, said that he would reach double digits this season. He's close to that. I think that it might be a game that he scores again. West Brom aren't that good. All right, so thank you very much, guys. If you watched this far into the video, again, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and comment down below which players you're looking forward to watching this weekend. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.